Say the word, Melanie. You.
Yeah, I'm just, the live stream's on. We are live. We're good.
We're live.
We're live.
So we're going to start with the zoning amendment 2022-01. Do you need a resolution before we start, Melanie, or right after?
Yeah. Before.
Where's Melanie? Holy geez, we lost Melanie. It's not going to be a good night. Okay, Paul, you'll have to take over. You're on mute.
Yeah, I was going to say I've waited all my life for this moment and I'm on mute.
15 minutes of fame. Jeez. Melanie, somebody should call Melanie. Well.
Melanie?
So it seems we've lost our municipal clerk. We're just waiting for her to get back online.
While we were on the subject of service providers for IT, I wonder.
Still in there?
She'll be on soon there. She's got some technical difficulty she's fixing. Shouldn't be long.
All right. Anybody know a song or something, or no? Nobody wants to sing? Norm, ça va des chansons à répondre, toi?
Ouais, mais si je commence à chanter, tout le monde va fermer le screen. So. Oh, we got her name, now we need her picture.
We're getting there, eh?
My apologies. I went to close the live stream link and I shut the whole program. I'm so sorry.
Oh, well.
Fine. There's a little box that pops up after I press the recording that says leave meeting or got it. I pressed the leave meeting button.
Long day, eh? All right, so we're going to proceed or try to proceed.
My apologies again. So.
The zoning amendment 2022-01. Do we need a resolution before or just?
We do.
Okay, so
I'm going to move her in a seconder.
Move her in a seconder. Chris and Norm.
It is moved by Chris Fisher and second by Norman Roberge, whereas a public meeting was held for the purpose of amending zoning bylaw 2014-45 for property located on Principal Street West in Verner. And whereas no written objections have been received, be it therefore resolved that the West Nipissing Municipality recommends or does not recommend the Council for the West Nipissing Municipality adopts the proposed zoning bylaw to rezone the property located on Principal Street from R2 Residential Zone 2 to R3, and that Schedule F31 of the bylaw shall be amended by changing the zoning designation of the property. Through you, Mr. Chair, this is a super simple one. I didn't even write a report because it's a parking lot. This was a lot addition severance put forward by Mr. Goodrich a few months back. The applicants were Pauline and Gaston Betty. They were adding a piece of the property at the rear to the property at the front for additional parking. So the piece of property we're dealing with here is parking lot. So just that the property they added from was a different zoning than the property they added to. So this was a condition of severance, that's all. So this is being done just to unify the zoning on the whole property.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any questions or concerns? Anybody from the audience have any concerns? So, oops, somebody's lighting up. But okay, so I guess it's all in favor of the resolution. Passed or carried, I should say.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone, and Happy New Year.
Oh, that's
to you, Paul.
We'll see you, Paul.
Are you coming back for the next meeting?
No,
Okay, why?
Oh. Bye.
Oh, kiddo.
So carrying on, we're going to go ahead with the, did we finish our the zoning bylaw for,
Well, we finished, but I want to just make sure that I got all the subtle nuances, and I tried to redline everything after the meeting. I put together all the notes that I scratch notes that I made. So until we settle the issue of accessory dwelling units, I redlined that out. So on my summary, on my memo, where's my memo? I tried to summarize the discussions that we had and pare it down. I know we were all over the place, and if I missed something or forgot something or didn't make a note of something, please feel free to jog my my ever aging memory. But I believe that we had agreed in the for the setbacks that we weren't going to go to 4 meters, we were going to go to 3 meters.
exactly?
And people seemed okay with that. We had, I think, agreed that shipping containers could be used as accessory structures in all zones except for the R1s to R4. Obviously with restrictions, and we had decided on a minimum lot size of 1 acre, as I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong. We had also determined that only 1 shipping container per property could be had, providing the property obviously had the sufficient area. The shipping container should not be longer than 40 feet, and that all of the other accessory structures provisions would still be met: lot area, lot coverage, setbacks, numbers of structures, all of those same things would fall into play as if it were a shed or any other accessory structure. I think that was it, but please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong.
Mr. Roberge?
Yes, Mr. Chair. On the memo you've just discussed, item 6 mentioned that those that get a temporary permit along with the building permit, note that to locate it, that it shall not be in the front yard. I think in certain cases, from what I've observed, they don't have more choices in that situation. Some have the way like here because there's an attached garage or whatever, and depending on the type of renovation they're doing, they pretty well have to put it like that box would be, that container would be in front of the residential property. So I think to leave the rest in that statement, it's further down in the bylaw there itself, that shall not interfere with the safety and proper use of neighbors' property, that I don't think we should prohibit it in the front yard or to be, closer to the street than usually the front line of the residential building is the one that determines where the other building are located. But certain cases, I see it's impossible to put a container when you're doing some improvement to the property in any other place. I know myself last summer, I had some work done on my house and I have a large property, and they had to put it in front of the house to facilitate their work. And so that's why I'm bringing that up.
Thank you, Mr. Roberge. Any comments on that? Fern, and then Joanne, and then Chris.
I got a question, Melanie, and it affects me. If you got, let's say, a container that's been there for a long time, is it grandfathered? Is it?
Are we yes, typically when a bylaw is passed, unless the committee wants to specifically state that all containers shall comply, there's a statement that says that all existing situations in place at that date shall be considered to be legal. So if you've got one it's already bigger or not in the right place, you can keep it.
Because I've got more than one. I got two. I got one that I parked my dozer in for the last 30 to 40 years. And I've got a big school bus that I use to dry oak and maple. And that too, I've been doing that for probably 30 years. And every 10, 15 years, I trade it. I bring it to the scrap and I buy another one from Alouette. So I just want to make sure that I'm still good.
Okay, so we'll have that conversation about the bus when we get farther down. But typically, yes, typically new bylaws, new regulations affect going forward.
Okay, so but is there a statement that's it's gonna say that in black and white?
It's, I think it was already in the proposed amendment, but I will, if I took it out when I was doing my, my housekeeping, I will put it back in. It's right at the beginning of the whole zoning bylaw.
Just because I don't want to end up in a couple of years down the road, different people and, oh, it's, you know.
Well, I'll make sure that it's in. I'll make a note.
Okay, thank you.
Joanne was next.
Okay, I did have a question, but before proceeding to the question, I appreciate the comment of Norm. But in those circumstances, like I don't have a problem with that. But I thought that it would be permissible if there'd be construction or renos when there's a building permit issued. Should it identify based on renos or construction, because it only specifies as temporary use?
If you go down, are you looking at Madam Mayor, are you looking at the bylaw itself, or are you looking just at my memo?
Oh, I was looking at the memo because
No,
that was,
the bylaw has the actual states that a valid building permit has been issued, but only for so long as necessary for the work, and the work is completed.
okay,
Yeah, I just did a brief summary for the memo.
okay, perfect. And since the last time that we had that discussion, I received a request, and it's rural residential where you have individuals that do own more than 10 acres, okay? And there's no structure on the actual property, and the property is being potentially in the future going to be severed for lots, but then there's clearing of that land that's taking place. So to store equipment, i.e. similar to the comment of the other board member, Fern, potentially 2 storage unit could be required, one to store a tractor and one to store other tools and equipment.
Right now, I'm sorry, right now we don't live, like, the only limitation for one that we were making was on the shoreline residential.
Okay,
In rural residential, you can have up to 3, as many, or, you know, same
Okay.
as any other.
I just wanted to make sure that it was highlighted and referenced this evening because
Yeah,
I
it was-
recommended
It was
to the
my,
resident.
go ahead.
I wanted to make sure that it was asked and that the resident in question would listen to the meeting and would have a better understanding of what's being proposed in the bylaw.
Thank you, Joanne. Chris is next, and then Dan, but we'll just let Melanie, if she has.
I just, for the sake of the record, the discussion that we were having with regard to the limitations, I think was largely surrounding the shoreline residential zone. We weren't looking at making those same restrictions on rural or rural residential. Those were strictly for waterfront properties, I assume. That's the way I understood it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Melanie. Okay, Chris.
So just to go back to Nolan's comment, which I agree with, I'm just wondering if we can't fix that with 2 words, where possible. So we just say, provided that where possible, they are not located in the front yard, and that might fix that problem for us. Thank you.
Sounds good. Everybody in favor of that? Just add if possible?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Dan was next.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The point of the 40 feet shipping containers for a shoreline, didn't we have a discussion where we would limit the size? I was under the impression that we said that it would be 20 feet because of the fact that a 1 acre lot doesn't give you much room to put a 40 feet container. Take an example, some people's homes are not even 40 feet long, and then they'll have a container. And most of the lots on the shoreline, well, not most, but a lot of them in the areas like Clear Lake and even down from Nadzulak, the lots are not 1 acre. So I'm just wondering if everybody would be amicable to changing it from 40 to 20. That's all I wanted to bring up in regards to that in your summary, Melanie. I do agree with Norm's approach in the sense that where it's possible, because since we did have the meeting, I've been going around and I've noticed a lot of the people do put them in the front yard. And not just because of the reason that they can't get the backyard, it's because they don't want to damage their lot. So they put it in their parking, in their driveway. So that's, I can honestly say that I've seen that with my own eyes. So I just, there's 2 points I brought up.
Okay, Melanie?
I just want to clarify, I know we're jumping between two different provisions here. The provisions for allowable shipping containers in some certain zones is a different discussion than temporary uses, which I think that Dan is referring to and Norm was referring to. Those are the in-town zones who would be getting a shipping container if they're doing work. The shipping containers, part of what you said, Dan, is relating to that you wanted the shorter shipping container for the ones that people were going to keep permanently to store stuff in. Okay, I get it. So, and then the other comment was about, I believe that Norm's original comment was about the temporary uses in the residential zones. Okay, just clarifying.
Good, thank you.
Keep my notes straight.
Norm, did you have something?
Well, maybe I believe if my memory is good, like there's a percentage of accessory building compared to the main building. So that might on smaller lot, like member Vito mentioned, I think that would address it. Maybe the percentage would kick in and they can only have 32 feet instead of 40. But some of them do have 1 acre and 1 acre and a half. They have huge property. And so that's why I think the percentage formula for accessory building is a total aggregate, like everything that is not part of the residence under the percentage, combined percentage. So I think, and I don't think it's very big.
Accessory structures are limited to 5% of your total lot
That's what I
coverage.
was getting at. So they cannot exceed 5%. So I think that resolve it. If you have room for a huge 4,000 square foot main building, you could have a larger container and still blend in together and fit properly if you meet everything. That's the way I see it.
Will that open up will that not open up for bigger containers if it's a percentage?
It could be capped at 40.
Yeah. I think Dan was next and Chris.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. So what you're saying, Norm, is that the limited percentage of spaces for other buildings is 5%. But then the bylaw is going to stipulate that you cannot have a container more than 40 feet.
So that's to limit on it, either 5% or 40 feet.
Oh, so that's what it is. It's either or the other. Okay.
Yeah. Chris?
Just in line with that, I just want to check that I understand. So that's 5% for accessory buildings, but then there's correct me if I'm wrong, then there is also the 15% total coverage. So it can't be, is that correct? Isn't it 15%?
It's 15 total lot coverage. of which 5% can't exceed accessory structures.
Right, so, so that would put a double jeopardy on it, correct? So if you had a really big house on your property, like you can't go over that, 5% for accessory, and you can't go over that total 15%, so it would double jeopardy it, yes?
That's
Is that
correct.
Thank you.
So some properties just couldn't because they wouldn't be able to meet the requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Good.
Melanie, where is that 5%? I'm lost here.
It's in table 6.1 in the residential zone requirements. I don't know if you can see right here, but there's a table here that talks about the
Okay.
maximum coverage
Okay.
for accessory structures.
Yeah,
It's in the table, in table 6.1 in the zoning bylaw.
okay.
And it's
Thank you.
different for different zones, obviously in town, because you have water and sewer. People can have up to 10% lot for accessory and up to 50% total lot coverage because they don't have to have septics and wells and stuff like that. So, but in the rural area, it's capped at 15.
Right, thank you. Who's next? Any other comments or questions? I guess we're gonna move on to the public before we proceed further
I
down.
just wanted to make sure before we move on, the other comments, we were basically going to allow the galvanized steel containers everywhere, but in the SR zone, they would have the same restrictions as the shipping containers. Okay, I got that. What was the other thing? Oh, do we want to discuss the accessory dwelling units tonight, or do we want to, I put it back on as conversation.
Well, we might as well. Is that the next step?
Yeah, well, we can ignore it altogether, but it was a conversation. I think I'll just reiterate how it came about. As the people you guys on this committee know, we've entertained a number of applications over the last few years for people wanting to build homes for their aging parents, sometimes for children with young families, for caregiving. And by and large, we get, I'm going to say, half a dozen applications a year at least for people wanting to have a second dwelling on their property. Sometimes it's for people who have a cottage and want to build a permanent home, but they want to keep the cottage for a guest house. So what I was proposing was that in the rural residential and the shoreline residential and the rural zones, that second dwellings could be permitted, providing they still meet all of the same things that we were just talking about: lot coverage, lot area, lot frontage. So for example, say someone who only had a 50-foot lot and they already had a house, well, they wouldn't be able to because they don't have the sufficient space. So the second dwelling would only be allowed if you could meet all the requirements that you would need to have one dwelling. Does that make sense?
Are you?
I think I'm done.
Okay. Dan is next, and then Chris.
So what happens to when you see in the cities where they go up instead of going that way? With this, so you're basically saying that nobody could go up. In other words, if I wanted to put a second dwelling in the house that I'm in to accommodate my, well, I wouldn't accommodate older people up there. I'd probably move upstairs and then I would move down.
This is for detached secondary dwellings.
Okay, good. Thank you.
And these are only in the zones where the property sizes are big enough.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Chris.
So my opinion on this, whether it's real or imagined, there is some concern that tying, secondary buildings, secondary dwellings with short-term rentals accommodations, and my preference would be to take care of the some legislation around short-term rentals and delay those fears, and then tackle the permission, the blanket accessory dwelling permissions. I just think that would be the way to go. And as Melanie said, it's only, you know, a dozen a year. We can handle them on a case-by-case basis until we get there. So I prefer just to tackle the second one and get a document on that, and then go back to this one. Thank you.
Any other comments? I tend to agree that it's confusing when you start with the one and then you jump into the other one. So the STR should be either done now or after.
Want to put that to bed first?
Pardon me?
We want to put that to bed first.
Yes, if we can, and then we can
Come back
focus
to
on the
the
other.
accessory dwellings.
It's too confusing.
Fair
a little
enough.
bit.
So that would conclude and well, obviously we got to go to the public with the things we just discussed,
Mhm.
the containers and things, to the people on the line, but that would conclude the committee's conversation about the general amendments.
Okay,
I did have some questions pertaining.
go
our
ahead,
comment.
Joanne, then Fern.
Okay, when we talk about secondary accessory dwelling to accommodate the i.e. aging parents, we already have that in our official plan, right? As far as granny suites, like,
We have
is it still?
garden suites.
Okay, well, referred to as garden suites, but there are structures that have a specific purpose, and if not a need for use in the years, it's understood that that garden suite would be demolished, right? Because it's considered to be temporary.
That's correct, but they still have to come and get a zoning amendment.
That's right, but it's permissible, not just in rural residential. It's permissible in other zoning as well, like i.e. A1 or.
No, not in A1.
It's not?
No, A1 is very, very specific. It only allows one single family dwelling.
Okay, well, I was under the impression that if someone was zoned agricultural, you know, like if you have an example where the farmstead is being passed down to one of the children and the aging parents do decide to remain, that there could be a garden suite that would be built for the aging parents, and that it's understood that if they don't reside there in future years, that garden suite is subject to being demolished.
I'll check, but I don't think that the agriculture zone allows 2 dwellings ever, but I'll have to go back to the official plan. I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay, well, I think the secondary accessory dwellings, doesn't tell. Well, I'd like to have it deferred so we can have that discussion pertaining to the different zones and what's being permissible and what's being proposed.
Melanie?
I just wanted to comment on the issue of a garden suite. Garden suites have always been allowed, but almost no one wants one because no one wants to ever have to demolish a house that they've spent money to build. Plus, there are a lot of paper maintenance because they have to come back and reapply every 5 years and receive council's assent to keep it. Most municipalities have gotten away from garden suites just because people don't want to invest that kind of money and then, know that they eventually have to get rid of it. And most have gone to just, as I was bringing up, secondary dwellings that people could keep permanently. It's just a comment.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. But I think food for thought, yeah, definitely, it does warrant maybe further discussion, just on that specific topic. So it's clearly understood by all of us of what's being proposed and what we can and what we can't do.
So we'll leave the accessory dwelling conversation for another day.
Okay, thank you.
We're not talking about accessory buildings anymore?
Well, kind of. Now we're going to talk about short-term rentals.
Yeah, okay. That's a different animal.
Dennis?
Different conversation.
Yes.
So I'm just going to.
Excuse me, Melanie.
Hmm?
Melanie? Well, just, Fern had a question, I missed it.
Just two question. For the secondary house on Ag 1, I think isn't it allowed for farmhand?
Not anymore.
Really?
Been gone since the 2004 provincial policy statements.
Okay, because on Farran, on our road there, Farran put a,
Not A1s, are you?
okay, oh, he's not A1.
No.
Okay, my second thing, I guess, I don't know, we're done with the school bus or containers like this?
Well, maybe we should go backwards because we did have, and obviously you would be grandfathered, but there was a conversation briefly at the last meeting about the discussion about coach bodies, school buses, and those things being used for accessory structures. So I moved that to the general prohibitions. So basically stating that nobody anywhere should be using a school bus or a coach body or an abandoned vehicle as an accessory structure. I moved that into the prohibitions, but that's what I thought I heard. I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but, okay. So, Denis?
Go ahead, Fern.
Okay. Since that time, I was thinking, like, I know quite a few people that use them for a hunt camp. And me personally, I've been using one, like I say, for the last, like, you come to my place, you don't see it. It's in the back, it's hidden, it's not, so I don't know. I don't think it's, for me, it's the perfect setup. I don't think it should be banned, depending, I guess, where you are. And there's other types of trucks too. I know quite a few people that's got the full transport, which is perfect. It's a 45-footer, the big doors at the back, you put it in the low spot, you drive, you know, depending again where you are. Like I hate putting the rules like that. If you live in the city, no, you're not gonna have one. But out in the country, there's quite a few.
Okay, thanks, Fern. We'll go to Chris.
So actually I raised that last time and I raised it in the context of shoreline residential. I think there's a lot of residents that come and hang me if I said they couldn't have a school bus in their yard up here in this area. So specifically, I thought that those were out to shoreline residential and as is for the rest of the municipality because they are everywhere and they're very useful. Thank you.
Melanie.
I'm just gonna clarify. So we want to delete the general prohibition about the buses as accessory structures?
Well, is everybody in favor of that, or what's the comments, or? Doesn't look too good to me that you have buses on there.
I was gonna say, I probably wouldn't want to try it in town just because I think the neighbors would be cross, but
yeah.
We don't have.
Also on shoreline, if you have expensive homes and they have a bus on the next lot, doesn't look too good, right?
Yeah, it's what Fern said. It depends where you are, and that's really.
Yeah, well, how do you satisfy everybody? I mean, I know on the lake, there's no business for there's no place for school bus as far as I'm concerned. But if I had a $400,000, $500,000 house, I wouldn't want a bus on the next lot. That's for sure. So, I'm having a hard time supporting that. Chris?
So yeah, I agree. I just think it should just not and I think it's already there. Maybe I'm wrong. I'm just getting a bit confused. But it's none of that allowed on shoreline residential. But if you're rural, you know, go ahead and put a bus if you want a bus. Thank you.
I could agree with that.
we only want to restrict the buses on shoreline residential.
If that's what the committee wants, we'll see. Dan, you're next. You're on mute, Dan.
Sorry about that. So you're not saying shoreline and then comma residential. You're saying shoreline residential, there'd be a prohibition to have a bus.
No.
No? Okay.
There'd be a prohibition against a bus.
On the shoreline residential
Residential.
or shoreline and residential.
No,
No.
shoreline residential.
So how would we build it in from me preventing to have one in my yard here?
Well, then we got to decide if we're going to restrict them in, so we would restrict them in R1, R2, R3, R4, and SR.
Exactly.
I would be in agreement with that.
Okay. And we'll keep the buses for the rules for people.
In the bush.
That sounds good to everybody?
Yeah.
I believe
Vern?
Vern got his hand up.
No,
Vern?
no, because I'm on
I
shoreline
wasn't gonna tell them,
residential.
Vern.
Pardon?
I wasn't going to tell them.
No,
We can't see your bus.
well, I know. Again, I guess because I got maybe a little bigger lot.
Yeah. Well,
We're not, your grandfather.
Hey,
well,
I want to see it in black and white.
I'll make sure.
Not to complicate,
Joanne,
I don't want to complicate issues, but when we were discussing recreational campers and we said they were grandfathered, and then however, if they ever remove recreational campers, that they would need to meet the provisions of the bylaw, that they wouldn't be able to revert to. Meaning that if the bylaw stipulates a certain issue, if it prescribes where it can be, and if you're grandfathered because you do have one, but then if you remove it, then you fall under the compliance of the new bylaw. I've always thought that grandfathering is said that way.
That
So
is
if-
correct.
So if Fern keeps the bus for as long as he wants to, he's fine. But if he removes the bus and plans on bringing another bus, well, then if a bylaw's in place, he shouldn't be allowed to bring a new bus.
no, that's what the bylaw would say. So,
But I just want to make sure it's
No,
clear,
that-
like, I
that
mean,
is- that is the way it works. Yeah, that, in technicality, that is, so if someone were to call and say, this person took away their bus and they brought a new one in, we would have to go down and investigate.
I'm gonna do it overnight.
I didn't say that.
don't want to
we
know.
haven't heard that part. But you know what? I agree, Mr. Chair, with what's being proposed. No buses in R1 to R4 and shoreline residential. But if memory serves me right, there was a scenario that was described at a last meeting that some individuals do own shoreline residential, which is a lot of land, and that they can have a CCAN container, which no one would even see that they do have one. So what would be the difference in that type of area with a bus pertaining to the bus or one of those containers?
Well, the solution would be for Fern to buy a container, get rid of this bus.
Yeah. You're prescribing to someone what to do, but I'm just trying to make the distinction. Because I think it was like, was it Councillor Chris that gave the example? I'm not too sure, maybe memory serves me wrong. That he identified that he was zoned shoreline residential, and with the number of acreage that he did own, that if he had one container, two containers, they would not be at view of anyone, and that he would be able, he has the set footage to put it away from the waterfront. So what would be the difference if there was a bus versus one of those containers? I'm just asking because I find sometimes if we're too prescriptive, we move too fast, too quickly, and then it's much harder to remove than to add.
I
Sorry.
agree. Chris?
Yes, the mayor's correct. So, I've got a 30-acre, one of my properties is 30 acres shoreline residential. I could put 50 school buses and nobody would be able to see them and no one would care. And I think that's one of the big difficulties that we do have with this legislation, because I think shoreline residential and I think about my constituents like the people on Clear Lake, and that's what their view of shoreline residential. But then you have people like myself and Fern that have a shoreline residential property that is of a completely different nature than the ones that we're kind of talking about, because we're outliers, I guess you would say. But in a place like West Nipissing, we're not outliers. So that's all I have to say. It's a very difficult thing.
Melanie?
I just wanted to correct Councillor Fisher, Mr. Fisher. He's actually, you're zoned rural, Chris, even though you have water, your property is zoned rural.
The one I live in next door is shoreline residential.
Is it small?
It's the one I live. Yeah, it's smaller. The one next door is 30 acres, and this one's 100 and something acres. And there,
I'll check that out, because nothing over 4 acres should be SR, but I'll check.
that's all one on my impact file.
Oh, no, your assessment's different than your zoning.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That's a whole nother discussion.
Oh.
Well, let's not go there tonight.
Oh, no.
Melanie, what's the present regulation for school buses? How come there's school
Typically,
buses?
well, previously, the wording in the bylaw, I'll grab the current bylaw and read you what it currently says. Accessory structures. It says, it's actually under the storage containers. It says no person shall in the R1, R2, R3, R4, SR, C1, C2 use any truck, bus, coach, transport truck trailer, streetcar bodies, railway car body, railway shipping container, or similar structure of any kind for an accessory structure. So you're already in violation, Fern. I'm coming out tomorrow. I'm
Is
teasing.
John? No, Mel, because
It was
I was,
already a prohibition.
no, I was there pre-amalgamation, so
I
I'm
know.
still good.
I'm
Grandfather.
So
Okay, so
right now, the way the bylaw reads now, you can't have a shipping container or a bus in the SR zone.
you can't have,
You cannot. We were proposing to amend the bylaw to allow containers.
instead of buses and
Be
shoreline.
prohibited.
Okay, and so I don't know, I'm at a loss here.
I can tell you, as long as I've been here, we've never had a bus complaint.
Bus complaint?
Not the storage buses. We periodically get them for people in town where they're. But
Why don't we leave that alone? If
leave
it's
the
not an
buses
issue,
alone.
yeah. If it's not an issue, leave the buses alone.
But we have to say one way or the other, are they allowed or they're not allowed? Currently, they're not allowed.
Well,
Leave them not allowed?
just leave them not allowed, and if whatever happens, there's buses anyways, so they can deal with the bylaw guy. Holy jeez.
Nobody's ever complained about Fern's bus.
Oh,
Not one.
I'll put a complaint tomorrow morning. Unless I get my case of beer.
Okay, now this is getting really complicated.
No, it's okay. So, yeah. So we need to do something with the buses. Do we leave it alone? I think so. for now.
For now, yeah.
Revisit that at a later date. If
I'll
we,
leave it, the wording the way it is,
yeah,
where I'll leave the wording the way it is. I won't mess with it.
Can I propose something?
well, Dan was first and then Joanne.
Okay,
So, Chair, then that means if you leave the buses alone, then anybody can put a bus anywhere they want.
Nowhere.
No, the opposite.
Yeah.
Nowhere? Oh, so
Nobody
leave,
can put a
okay,
bus.
okay, good. That's what my clarification was. The second part was, but we are going to allow the sea containers in the specific areas that we set, and that will regulate it by the 5% and the 15%, and so they'll be allowed to have them up to 40 feet. So that we're not changing.
That stays, yeah.
Okay,
Joanne,
well, I was gonna say, if there are buses at different location and we know there's non-compliance, but we're not getting any complaints, we're not really resolving anything though. And it's true that the dynamics within the boundaries of our municipality, some people do own extensive land acreage. And it's true that it's being used diversified, i.e. as hunting camps.
yes.
So is it possible that there could be a little bit more research done with municipalities and other municipalities in Northern Ontario where they have extensive land base, and we know that it's a common practice at different locations, and revisit this with information?
We'll go to Melanie, then Dan.
Well, I was just going to expand on what the mayor had indicated. We did do that when we did our initial, and right now you can have a bus in the RU, in the A1 or the A2, or the RR. You just can't have one in the SR and the R1 to R4.
Okay,
Okay, so that's,
You have
Okay.
to confirm.
thank you for the information.
so just to confirm, Chair, then that means that we're leaving as it is.
for
Okay.
now, yes.
Now, good,
That's,
thanks.
that's what I'm hearing from the committee.
Good.
Okay. There we go.
Can
Better go to
somebody
the public.
mention something here?
Pardon me, yes.
Can I get
Yes,
your
it's-
name, please?
Just state your name and address, please.
It's Howie Longfellow, President of the Cottagers Association, 117 South Shore Road.
Can I get your
Field
name?
on.
again? Sorry, is it Howie?
Yep,
Oh, sorry,
that's okay. Did you get my address?
I did.
Okay. So regarding that, the storage container, section 4211, we would like to see the maximum size of the storage containers to be 20 feet rather than the 40 feet on the shoreline zone of a 1 acre size lot. And that no structure will be located closer than the 3 meter to any side or rear lot, regardless of the 5%. As well as stated in the temporary container, section 428.1, the last item there says the municipality reserves the right to inspect any such structure to ensure that it does not affect, impede, or restrict the use or enjoyment or safety of any abutting or adjacent property. Would there be an issue with that being added to the previous section for the permanent storage containers and galvanized steel structures, or because it's on there for the temporary, but I mean, it is temporary, right? When we're talking about permanent structures, why would that sort of caveat or bullet not be added to the permanent structures?
Go ahead, Melanie.
I'll just respond to Mr. Longfellow. Typically, permanent structures are limited and are regulated very specifically. If I can't be closer than this or farther than that. Temporary structures, as Mr. Roberts indicated earlier, they're just putting it there for a short while. It's not intended to be a permanent thing. So when I put that clause in there, that would be something like, if you put it in the front yard and your neighbor couldn't see the back out of his driveway, we would reserve the right to say, hey, can you scooch that over so that the neighbors can get out of their driveway safely? To put that in a regular paragraph would place our staff in a position of, you try not to put subjective comments in bylaws because they're very hard to enforce.
Mhm.
Because, you know, what one person may think is a safety or an aesthetic concern, another person might say, I think that's just perfectly fine. So you can do it with temporary stuff, but not with permanent structures. You try to keep it as prescriptive as possible and for enforcement purposes.
Okay. So then I would propose that we, you know, regardless of that 5%, a maximum size of a storage container be 20 feet in the shoreline zone of a 1 acre size. I know that we're going back to something that was discussed a little bit earlier, but we feel pretty strongly about the size of these containers on these small shoreline properties.
I guess I'll comment a little bit. I think you're restrictive with 20 feet. I mean, if you build a garage on your property, it's probably more than 20 feet. So,
oh, absolutely.
You know, it's a similar accessory building. So, anyways, that's just my opinion. I think it's too restrictive to go to 20 feet, but that's just my opinion. Chris, you're next.
So I do understand Mr. Longfellow's point, and if I'm not mistaken, I think that 99% of the shipping containers that you do see tend to be 20 feet, right? And the ones I see most days are the 20 footers, not the 40 footers. Would I be right? Can somebody tell me if I'm right about that?
Mine are 20 feet.
I would think they're 40 feet, but Norm, do you know?
Yeah, there 20 feet is quite often. There's lots of 32 also. The 40 are, I've seen them mostly into the agricultural sector where they have bigger implement to store. But as the chair just mentioned a few seconds ago, you see, if you build, let's say, a regular wooden building, then the 5% kicks in, and so that's why I think if we're going to treat these structure as regular building, they should be submitted to the same rule as the chair has mentioned. One rule, accessory buildings and accessory building, whether it's made out of steel or a wood frame with steel on it or all steel, it's still a building that falls under the one rules apply to all the accessory building. And I think that's a lot easier to enforce and understand. So to have, if it's made of that material, it's one size, it's made of other material, it's another side. I don't think we're trying to make a bylaw that's going to be clear and concise. So I think we should stick with one rule. The percentage seems to have worked well in the past. I think we should stick with it. That's my view.
Mr. Chairman, can the public speak?
Yes.
Yes.
My name is Bob Jolly, and I'm from Clear Lake as well, from 116 Clear Lake Road. And I completely agree with Mr. Longfellow. And before that, I guess Councillor Fisher was saying something very similar. There is a clear difference between a metal container and a wooden building. And I think that should be reflected in the way that we word the bylaw. 20 feet is a large metal container on a property on a water, whereas 40 feet would be a ludicrous thing to have it on a shoreline. Most of the cottages on our lake would be much smaller than the container. So I agree with Howie, and I think it's very important that we keep that down 20 feet on those 1 acre lots. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Fern?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the 40 feet. 40 feet or 20 feet, it's got to be behind your house. So your view is in the front of your house. So I'm okay with that.
Okay, was any other comments? Dan?
My question is basically directed to Norm or Mr. Tabarsh. You stated that you've seen in the past that the 15 and the 5% would look after the issue. Could you give me an example? Maybe that's why people are not keying in on that. The example of how the 15% rule works, how the 5% rule works.
Well, I don't have a specific property in mind there, but I mean, in other words, that was established according to when we did put the existing zoning bylaw together. That was a process that went on for about 3 years. We spent over $100,000 of municipal money to do all the surveys. And this is what came out of it, that, you know, after all the research, some consultants that specialize in that business. And as far as I know, I've been sitting on this planning for quite a while. And as far as I know, it has worked pretty well as a general rule. And that's why sometimes we have to do a bit of fine adjustment through the committee of adjustment because they're short 1 feet there or there, but basically it has worked well. And I think people, you know, because it's got the name of sea can or container, they put a different, but they are only 8 feet wide and 8 feet high. So they're just a small square box. Okay, it might be 30 feet long or 36 or whatever, but you can build a garage that's just twice that size, that's 14 feet high, and we should be twice the height of a sea container, and the 5% rule is okay with the people for that. So that's why I agree with the chair that we should stick with the percentage value, and we can always review it in a year or so from now if we run into a problem, but I think it has served the municipality pretty well in the past.
Okay, thank you.
Chris?
So I just want to check, just to make sure that I understand. Because these are permanent structures, it's not as if now I want a shipping container on my property, I can just go and get one. I need a building permit for this, and no, I don't?
No.
This is a permanent structure, I thought.
Yeah, but the shipping container is, there's nothing to build.
So it is laissez-faire. It's laissez-faire. There's no inspection. There's no, this is how I put it. This is where I put it. And nothing like that.
No.
Okay. So now I do. So I do see more of the concern in the 40-foot length, but okay. Thank you very much.
Can I ask a question, please, or make a statement? It's Kathleen Thorne-Worsham.
Yes, go ahead, Kathleen.
Thank you. That was kind of my question. So there's no permit issued on the shipping containers. So then there's no permissions needed to place a shipping container. So then how does the municipality know that it's being done right? And the other question is, does the shipping container, since it doesn't require a permit, take up in shoreline residential, and Melanie, please correct me if I'm wrong, it's a maximum of 3 accessory structures permitted on, so does the shipping container constitute one of the permitted 3 accessory structures? So you have a garage,
absolutely,
you have a shed, you have a structure, but then how do you know that, you know, they don't already have 3? So it's very complaint driven, I would assume.
I was going to say it's mostly complaint driven and by people calling in and informing themselves, because as a rule, 99% of people call beforehand to find out what they can and can't do.
Mm-hmm.
We have lots of things in our bylaw that are permitted that you don't need a building permit for.
Mm-hmm.
But people call and inform themselves if they do need a permit or they don't need a permit, or where do they have to put it. Yeah.
I'm just saying, without any process to actually like Can I do this? As a neighbor, if I'm looking at my neighbor's yard and I'm looking at their shipping container, I don't know whether the addition of that shipping container has brought them over the 15% coverage. I don't know their specific lot size or their house size. So there's nothing in place that actually regulates. You say, oh, well, they can't exceed the 15%. Well, who's going to know whether it exceeds the 15%? There's issues there in like, how do you actually control it?
You would liken it to the way we deal with sheds. People who you don't need a permit for a garden shed, and you're still only allowed to have 3 of them. And unless we get a call that says, so-and-so has 4 or 5, or, I think he's got way too many structures on his backyard. It's the same. We would go down and take a look, and we have the ability to calculate whether or not there's a lot coverage, because we do have access to the information about the sizes of the structures on the property.
Okay. I thank you for that information. It seems that there's a lot of burden put on neighboring property owners, and there's not a lot of kind of control in the way that it would be implemented. But thank you.
Okay, thank you. Chris?
So sorry to belabor this, but now I've been operating under sort of a wrong set of assumptions. So now it's put to me that way. I understood, Mr. Longfellow raised the concern and talked about putting the reserving the right to inspect and et cetera. And I understood when I was thinking, oh, these things are going to be, you're going to have a building permit, when I was thinking that way. But without a building permit, I completely agree that we might want to have a clause that says, we reserve the right, you're not impeding, restricting, and enjoyment and safety, because we are without putting any kind of permitting in place, we're just leaving it up to the. So I've changed my view of that argument. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Melanie?
I just wanted to reiterate that we can't have subjective comments we can't have subjective clauses in a bylaw, because it's impossible to enforce, because, one person's, you simply can never, if something might bother someone that wouldn't bother anybody else, or vice versa. We have to have concrete rules for permanent structures. That's why we had indicated it must not be in the front yard. It has to, be this far back. That's the sort of thing. And beyond that, well, then it's, the lot coverages, like I said, is we don't regulate garden sheds and things like that either. We rely on our residents to inform themselves before because I don't think anybody wants to spend $6,500 on something for us to come down and say, whoa, you shouldn't have that if you don't have enough room, or you have too many structures already, because that, we hope that before they invest the money, they're going to give us a call.
Right, thank you, Melanie. Any other comments? So how do we, Dan?
Well, my comment was, how do we alleviate the concerns of these taxpayers? If one doesn't feel comfortable with the percentage, I would just recommend that we do have a limit on the footage of the sea containers in the shoreline. That's my position.
I don't agree. I think we have a good formula, and we should follow the formula. And it's good for everyone in West Nipissing, not just a group. And I think we should follow that formula. It's been in place for, as Mr. Roberta said, for a long time. It's worked well for us. And you can't please everybody. Somebody's going to disagree for sure. But, we have to move forward here. And we've been discussing this a long time. And I think we can ask the committee. Sorry. Yes, Dan.
No, Mr. Chair, all I was saying is that it was just alleviate. If I will go with the majority, if the majority says what you're stipulating,
Well,
I have no issue.
before you interrupted me, that's where I was going. We should ask the committee, maybe we should have a vote on who wants to keep the formula as is, and we can proceed with the bylaw. So who wants to keep the formula that we have now? So, okay, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're carried. So we're going to keep the formula as is.
We're treating it as an accessory structure, and the 5% lot coverage will cover off.
Exactly.
So if
Yes.
you have a little wee lot, you may not be able to have a 40-footer.
That's exactly, yes. All right, so
Perfect.
what's our next step, Melanie? Where are we
So
at?
we're basically, I think, finished the conversation about the general amendments to the zoning bylaw. I don't know if we want to start the residential accommodation or the short-term accommodation discussion tonight, or?
I'm seeing nods, but I'm not willing to go tonight. I think we need to digest what we've discussed tonight and go forward. There's
Yeah,
no
and
hurry.
yeah,
Yes, Mr. Rabel.
yeah, Mr. Chair, and also we have another meeting in 20 minutes, 15 minutes. And I think this discussion will last longer than 15 minutes. So to give it the proper discussion time and hearing, I think to be fair to everybody that might be involved, maybe we should defer it to the February meeting. That's just a suggestion there, but to be fair to the public, because it's going to be a fairly intensive discussion, that one, I think.
Everybody in favor of deferring this to the next meeting? Carried.
And the next steps, jumping backwards a little bit, I'm just going to jump back on the changes to the comprehensive zoning bylaw. The next step is to bring those recommendations of this committee to council as a whole for a conversation. So that's where that goes next.
Okay, that's what I wanted to ask, the next step pertaining to this. Okay.
The residents can always forward, they'll have a chance to comment at council, right?
No, this is the public forum.
Okay.
But certainly the comments that they've been submitted and the written stuff does go forward. All that goes forward to council.
All right, thank you.
So do we want to adjourn? And
mover and a seconder, Dan and Chris.
It is moved by Dan Revita and seconded by Chris Fisher that be it resolved that the West Nipissing Planning Advisory Committee meeting of January the 10th, 2022 be adjourned to February the 14th, 2022. Get to spend Valentine's Day with you guys.
Nobody's going to be in a good mood. All right, so all in favor? Carried. Okay,
See
have a
you
good
in
one.
17 minutes, those who are at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good job, Mr. Chair.
So, on reste ouvert, moi, Mélanie?
I'm going to leave the live stream on, but if you want to just put yourself on mute and turn off your screen.
Okay, will do. Mute, 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 mute.
Non. Go break.
Salut Roger.
Comment ça va, mon Fern?
Ça marche, toi?
Ça va très bien.
Ça marche. Salut Gaétan. On ton doigt dans vite.
Hey, pas souvent ça, moi, le fun.
En fait, ça pas moi non plus. C'est pour ça que je viens au township, parce que j'ai pas de computer chez nous.
Ah, OK.
Hey, Gaétan, j'ai vu mon voisin hier, il vient de Sudbury, il est arrivé avec une snow dog. As-tu déjà vu ça?
No dog, ça, c'est vieux, ça.
Non, c'est flambant neuf, il vient d'acheter ça.
Ah,
Mais
j'ai
c'est
jamais
pas
vu
pire. C'est juste une traque, mais comme les vieilles affaires, là, mais c'est flambant neuf.
Ah oui, oui.
Puis t'es assis sur le petit buggy en arrière. Et j'ai dit, c'est une bonne en espèce, ça. Toi, Roger, t'as-tu déjà vu ça?
Ça fait longtemps, là. Je ne l'ai pas vu ça récemment, non?
Ouais, moi, pareil. Puis le gars, il vient d'acheter ça là, avant d'hier. C'est flambant neuf, il a acheté ça à North Bay.
Je pensais pas qu'il faisait ça
Ouais.
encore.
Oui, la traque à 20 pouces de large. C'est un petit moteur 4-stroke. Il s'assied le buggy en arrière, puis ça fait 20 000 à l'heure. T'aurais dû aller avec ça sur le lac puis dans le bord du bois.
Mais ça l'a-tu un ski ou ça n'a pas de ski?
Pas de ski, rien. Juste une
OK,
traque.
c'est comme il faut qu'il se penche pour tourner.
Ouais, ou qu'il force. Il y a une barre, là, puis tu essaies le buggy en arrière. Mais ça fait 20 000 à l'heure. C'est pas pire. 5 000 quelques piastres. C'est raisonnable.
Oui.
Tu sais,
Ouais.
à cette heure, là, tu peux pas acheter un skidoo en bas de 15-20 000 piastres.
Oui.
C'est vrai, ça.
Les jeunes, t'avaient un fun avec ça. C'était sharp. Yamaha, ils en font pas de ça?
Non, je pense. Ben, je ne sais pas. Je ne penserai pas. Moi,
Je pense pas.
Non.
Ah. Toi, t'es le premier sur l'agenda, toi, Gaétan.
Ah, ben, OK, good. Après ça, on pourra aller m'asseoir ailleurs. D'habitude, vos meetings, ça dure plus longtemps?
Ben, pas à soir, parce qu'il y a juste 4 applications.
OK.
Des fois, ça dure un petit peu plus longtemps. Des fois, s'il y a un voisin qui n'est pas d'accord, ben là, ça.
Ah, oui.
Ça dépend.
C'est vrai. C'est vrai. On va faire frais à soir, en tout cas, mon frère, hein?
Eh boy! Hein? C'est l'hiver.
Ah oui, on va l'avoir.
Hein? C'est l'hiver, calvaire. Ah ben, chauffeur, on n'était pas pire.
Non, c'est ça.
Hein?
Ben, faut la passer, ça va avoir un autre printemps.
Ah ouais. Roger, tu montes pas en Floride cet hiver?
Ah, je dirais pas, je suis déjà ici, là, mais je dirais pas la température, tu seras pas content.
Ah, t'es en Floride comme c'est là?
Ben oui.
Ah oui, ah ben, vois-tu? Ah oui, hein? Ouais,
Ah non, on veut un beau 80 aujourd'hui.
Ah oui, hein?
Ouais.
Ah ben.
Pas de chiolage.
Pas de chiolage.
Non.
C'est pour ça que tu disais pas rien tout à l'heure quand on disait que faisait fret.
Non, je vais garder mes mots à moi-même.
Ouais, c'est pas pire.
J'aime bien cette technologie ici, rien que pour ça.
Ouais, hein? Ouais, je crois bien. Hey, il n'y a pas personne. J'étais certain qu'il est chez eux, explique.
Ouais.
Ouais, Fern, je viens d'aller bloquer. Salut, Fern, je viens d'aller bloquer le fort, là. Il y en a du 40 en bas, ouais.
Ouais. J'ai mon remote avec moi, là. Avant que la meeting finisse, ça m'a le décollé.
Je te blâme pas, Trump.
Mais ça va, Rolly?
Ça va très bien, toi?
Ah, ça marche.
Good, t'as passé des belles fêtes?
Oh, avec le COVID, là, c'est pas mal, hein? C'est différent un peu.
Ah, ben, faut que tu fasses certain de prendre un petit coup pour le COVID, faire certain que.
Ah, ben ça.
Faut que tu te poignes pas. Ben, je suis bien content que le bylaw des SICAN ait été la manière que ça a été. Fern, 100% d'accord.
Ah ouais, moi.
Ouais.
C'est tout le temps. Hein, ils en veulent pas, puis.
Ouais.
Ça en prend juste une coupe pour chialer, pour arrêter de la patente. Moi, je me dis, mes lignes sont là, là. Fais que si tu veux chez vous, chale-moi pas.
Hey, salut, là.
Salut, Rolly.
Salut, Roger.
Bonjour, M. Denis, comment ça va?
Ça va bien. Tu vas-tu m'envoyer une coupe de sac de soleil?
Ah oui. Tu vois pas que je suis un peu
bronzé, là? Pas mal rougeâtre, là.
Oui.
Stand-up à côté de toi, là, ce que c'est qu'il y a là?
Ici, je suis dans ma sunroom.
Ah, il n'y a pas de bière, il n'y a pas rien, là.
Derrière? Oh, misère, ben oui, mais
Qu'est-ce que c'est ça?
je peux pas le démontrer.
OK, je vais pas le voir.
J'ai tout caché ça tout à l'heure.
Ah, beau là-bas?
Ah oui, on a eu du 80 aujourd'hui,
Oh my
82.
Oh, c'est
Ouais, j'étais-
bien trop chaud, ça.
Ah non, non, non. C'est bien correct quand j'ai pas besoin de le pelleter. Là.
Ouais, certain. Ah,
C'est quasiment la même température qu'à la vigne, ça?
Ouais.
quasiment. On a notre petit monde, ça.
Okay, now you hear me? What? Okay, now I don't hear. Okay, sorry, Melanie just told me I was talking away and nobody could hear me. Okay, good evening, everybody. I've already called the meeting to order when I was silent there. And now declaration of pecuniary interest. Hearing none, I'll go on to the next item. The approval of the agenda. Do we have a resolution? Moved by Dennis, second by Roger.
Mel, you're on mute.
Mel, you're on mute, eh?
Man,
Oh, yeah.
we're all together tonight. It is moved by Denise Senecal and seconded by Raj Gagnon. Be it resolved that the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting agenda for January the 10th, 2022 be adopted as presented.
Everybody in favor? Carry. The adoption of the minutes of the December 13th meeting.
Mover and a seconder. Chris. Dennis. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Denise Senecal. Be it resolved that the minutes of the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting held on December the 13th, 2021 be adopted as presented.
So any question or comments on the minutes? Hearing none, I will call it to a vote. Everybody in favor as circulated? Carried. Now, before we go on to the applications, I'll explain the process. The municipal planner present the information. If the applicant has a consultant, the applicant is welcome to make explain his application. Usually, the applicant they request the municipal planner to present, but they can present it themselves if they prefer. Then the board members will have some discussion or question among themselves to the planner or whatever, and then it's open to the public. Any person from the public wanted to participate, please state your name and address, because a municipal planner will ask to record it. So in case any one of you are not satisfied with the decision we make, the only people that have registered at the meeting can legally appeal our decision. So to protect your rights, you must participate when either in writing or verbally at the meeting. En français, s'il y en a de vous autres qui n'ont pas compris une partie ou qui veulent avoir plus d'informations, gênez-vous pas, vous pouvez le demander, puis on va vous interpréter les procédures en français pour faire sûr que tout le monde a compris ce qui se passe, parce que ça affecte la propriété. Nos décisions affectent les propriétés des individus, so on veut que tout le monde ait le chance égale. Aucune question? No question? Okay, we'll carry on with the first application, C01/22, Yves Rainville.
Mover and a seconder, please. Roger. Dennis. It is moved by Raji Gagnon and seconded by Denise Senecal that a consent application made by Yves Rainville for a lot addition on Rainville Road, east part of Lot 5, Concession B in the Township of Caldwell, Through you, Mr. Chair, this application is for properties located on the south side of Rainville Road. The persons to whom the lot is being added to are with us tonight, Mr. and Madame Labelle. They are just adding the bush portion of their property. The property of their, I believe, Madame Labelle's brother is right next door to theirs, and they're just adding a piece of his property, which is actually zoned agriculture and is not allowed to be a new lot, but they are allowed a boundary adjustment, and in this case, it's a lot addition.
Yes, and for the information of the members, all the members of the Ag Committee were contacted, and they all supported the application because what they're annexing is bushland that is not used for A1 purposes. So we're not taking any land out of the agricultural quota. So I hope that's clear to all the members. I'm part of the Ag Committee, so I was aware of all that process. Yes, Mr. Fisher. We don't hear you, Mr. Fisher. I think you're on mute.
Sorry, I hit the wrong things. So I just have a quick question. I have no problem with this application, but so the reason, so I see the 560, the property being added is 170 meters deep, and I see 592, lot 952 is slightly deeper. Is that because that's to preserve that little bit of ag land, and that's why we're not drawing the straight line? Is that the reason for that?
Maybe
I'll maybe ask Mr. Labelle.
Mr. Labelle, maybe you could explain.
Yes, it's because the owner prefer, so I can start just at the bush, not in the field, just if in the later future you decide to make a ditch and we're not owning that property, we won't be related, and you might have problem with the neighbor, the owner. That's the reason we push back. At first, I wanted to be equal with my land to make it square, and he asked us to push back. So I said, no problem there.
Okay, thank you very much. I was asking that question on behalf of Norm, because he always asks about straight lines. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher, because you know me about my mania about straight lines. Eh? Any other question or comments? Hearing none, because I think it's fairly straightforward. So I'll call it 12 vote. Everybody in favor as presented. Carried. The municipal planner will inform you, Mr. And Mrs. Labelle. There's a process there, 21 days and whatever, and then you can complete. If you're not already aware, just give her a call and she will explain the process how to complete the deal. But it's been approved by us tonight.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll go on to the next one, CO2/22, Andrew and Tricia Stewart.
I mover and a seconder, please. Chris. Fern. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Fern Pellerin. Goodness gracious. That a consent application made by Andrew and Tricia Stewart to create a new lot on vacant land located on Highway 64 in Living, being part of Lot 8, Concession 2 in the Township of McPherson. Through you, Mr. Chair, I'm just going to pull this up because this is kind of a little bit weird, but not too much weird. Let me just pull it up here. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen so you can see what's going on here. Okay, so can we see? Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Stewart own.
We can't see it.
You can't see it?
No, all we see is the menu.
Well, that's weird. Strange. Hold on a second. You only see the menu.
Yeah.
Let me try again.
Now we see you.
I know. I'm just going to try it again.
Now we got it.
Okay.
Now we have a map.
Okay, so Mr. and Mrs. Stewart own a whole bunch of property here. They own all this property here. And this long skinny one here is where the severance is being proposed. Okay, but it does, you'll see there's 4 little lots along here already. And the proposed severance actually cuts across 2 of the long skin, it cuts all the way across 3 separate pins and ends up butting up against this this little lot over here to the east. I did have a conversation with the owner of this little lot here this week. I understand, and I assume it'll be confirmed by the survey, that there is some encroachments. There seems to be a building here and perhaps some buildings back here that may be encroaching on the applicant's property. Obviously, I explained to the owner that that would have to be determined, and when the surveyors get there, and how they choose to resolve it is a civil matter. It's not the municipality's responsibility or concern how private encroachments are dealt with. Long story short is you'll see the shape of this lot. Sorry, Mr. Roberge. Again, we've got farmed land all through here and bush here. And the shape of this lot is being done to preserve the pasture land that is available, the farmable land that is available, and they're just carving out the bush here. So there was consultation with the Ministry of Transportation, who have indicated that they can issue an entrance permit for this new lot.
Okay.
And I think the information was in the package.
Okay, now it makes a bit more sense. The map that we had in our package, I couldn't figure out what those diagonal lines, but they are just hatch line to
She's
show
just shading it, yeah.
Yeah, and I, for the life of me, I said, what the heck's going on there? Now I understand.
Yeah, so you will see it butts right up against, so we didn't leave a space in here. So it comes across, he owns the property behind this one, and this one. He owns all 4 parcels across here.
Okay.
So that is what is being proposed by that. So I should have, yes. I did read the resolution.
So any question or comments?
I have a
Yes,
question,
Roger.
Norm. It shows that it's creating 1 new lot, but it's showing 3 or 4 diagonal lines. Does it mean that there is 3 or 4 individual lots?
No, these are just hatch line because instead of just saying, let's say, a pen and make it the whole block yellow or red, or you just do some hatch line, and
yeah, she just used hash marks. I'll mention to her again to shade it. It's a little less confusing.
Not a problem.
But
and like I said, the MTO had no concerns with this.
But the proposed lot goes over 3 different properties.
Yeah.
That is, it takes from the starting from the 4 little lot, it takes one portion out of that piece there, the long one, and the triangle on the other one, right?
Mm-hmm.
So,
but they're all in common ownership and are all merged under the Planning Act anyway.
Oh, they are merged property. So we deal with only one application solves it all.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any other question or comments? Okay, hearing none, I guess I'll call it to a vote. Everybody in favor as presented? Carried. Next one, please.
Next application is, I'll get a mover and a seconder, please. Chris Fern. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Fern Pellerin. The consent application made by Yves and Brandy Vasnet for a lot addition at 1691 Highway 575 in Field, being the east half of Lot 2, Concession 5, being Part 1, 36R 14496 in the township of, Badge Road. Through you, Mr. Chair, this application is, this property here was the former, just for organizations, this was the former monument, the Norm's Monuments property, which is now owned by Yves and Brandy Besnet. The house is about here. What is being proposed, Mr. Besnay also owns this property over here on the west. And what he would like to do is to be able to do something with this property, but he cannot get an entrance permit from the MTO because this property over here is on a curve and there's guardrails and so on and so forth. So the only way he can get an access directly from the highway for this property over here is to take a piece off of the existing house lot and attach it to this property over here. That is what is being proposed by this application.
Oh, yeah.
So you'll see the highway curves right here.
Mm-hmm.
And MTO wasn't, in this, Mr. Besnay, under a different ownership, owns this as well. And the MTO wasn't too keen on giving an entrance permit for this property. So taking property off here to access it here.
Oh, okay.
Anything
that would solve
further,
the,
Eve?
that will solve the access, the entrance problem.
Was there anything else to add, Eve?
No, that's pretty much the plan.
That's what I figured.
Yeah.
Wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything.
Yeah, no, and even there's a little stretch there, but it's guardrails and there's a creek and a pond crossing there. So there was no way of doing access there at all.
So this will solve the problem.
Yep.
Okay. So any other comments or question? Hearing none, I'll call it a vote. Everybody in favor as presented, carried. Bonne chance, Yves.
All right, thank
See
you.
you.
Bye.
One,
Okay.
please.
Dernière chose?
Oui. Oui, on s'en va à Julienne Spencer puis Roy Vinyl.
Oui, the mover and a seconder, please. Roger? Chris? It is moved by Roger Gagnon and seconded by Chris Fisher that a minor variance application made by Julianne Spencer and Roy Vinat for property described as part of Lot 5, Concession 3, Plan NR, Part 4, NR 201 in the Township of Hugo, to reduce the minimum side. The purpose and effect of the application is to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 3 meters to 1.5 to permit construction of an addition, including an attached garage. Through you, Mr. Chair, this property is located on Point Road. And as everyone is aware, these lots are fairly small. Madame Spencer owns this number 42, and she also owns number 40 as well. And what is being proposed is she wants to build a garage, and that garage and the addition on the existing cottage is going to bring her to within 1.5 meters of the side yard lot line. And I think you can see where this addition is going to be up in this area here where the little hand is, and it's going to bring it to within about 1.5 meters of the property, the garage portion of the proposed addition. We did circulate, and no concerns were raised by any neighbors who were all circulated with the application.
Okay, any question or comments from the members? Any question or comments from the public? So hearing none, I'll call it to a vote. Everybody in favor as presented? Carried.
Well,
so now I guess we're at the adjournment.
We are, and an easy meeting for a change, but the way the applications are pouring in the doors, I'm thinking we're gonna have another year like 2022 or 2021. This just for reference, this committee heard over 80 applications last year.
Hey,
Most ever in all the years I've worked here.
Yeah, that's a record.
It is a record. We were busy last year.
Thank you very much, all the members. You see, you have established one record already as having, the committee with the most meeting in a year.
For sure. So if we'd like to get out of here.
We should get a plaque for that, Melanie.
A plaque? A plaque? I want a raise. Forget about the plaque. Can't take a plaque to Canadian Tire. I'm teasing. I am teasing. I will need a mover and a second so we can go home. Chris, Roger. It is moved by Chris Fisher and seconded by Raji Gagnon. Be it resolved, the West Nipissing Committee of Adjustment meeting is adjourned to February the 14th.
And I guess everybody's in favor? Carried and we?
Planner, I have a suggestion. You think it's, could we back it up to the 21st? I think February 14th is a busy day for some gentlemen.
Yeah, that's family day.
The 14th, the 21st?
So the 21st is family day.
So I guess we'll stick with Valentine then.
Well, you can argue with your wife, I guess.
Yeah.
I did think of that, Mr. Senecal, but when I looked at the calendar, I went, and no can do. That's a stat holiday.
Unless we make it another day.
So the only thing I guess though, if we stick with the 14, we have to bring a box of chocolate to Melanie.
Yeah.
Virtual chocolates.
Virtual.
You bring in a box, but you can eat them all yourself. And I'll watch. How's that?
All right.
Yeah, no one will be, we'll be probably moving into budget soon too. So available meeting nights are probably going to get to be scarce anyway. So
Yeah.
anyways, thank you
very
everyone.
much, Dennis, for bringing this to our attention that we should consider another evening. But I think they're very limited, those available.
Your wives can't blame me.
No, she won't blame you. I'm the chair, so I'll take the whole blame.
Merci tout le monde. Good night, everyone.
Night.
Bye-bye.
Take care. And watch out for the cold, no frostbite there.